Welcome to StarWatch Now, your front row seat to all the hottest gossip, drama, and breaking news from the world of entertainment. If it's trending, shocking, or star-studded, we're covering it. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss what's coming next. What if the truth you've been searching for was never lost, only hidden? Today, a single phone, a single file, and a single act of courage are changing everything we thought we knew about the mysterious death of actor Menglong. This isn't just another headline. It's a revelation that's forcing the world to confront what really happened to a man once adored for his kindness, his calm presence, and his silent strength. And what was found on that phone is rewriting the entire story. Welcome to StarWatch Now, where stories behind the spotlight finally find their voice. The moment that file surfaced, everything changed. It wasn't simply another clip floating through the noise of the internet. It was a piece of history, fragile yet unyielding, holding the echoes of a man's final hours. The video, believed to have originated from fan Shiqi's phone, was quietly delivered to investigators by someone who remains unnamed, a person who chose conscience over safety. Their decision has become the spark that reignited public interest in Menglong's mysterious death and transformed rumor into investigation. What this source risked to reveal is more than evidence. It is a message about truth, how it survives even when buried under fear. According to those with access to the recovered material, the footage is unsettling not for what it shows, but for what it suggests. It captures you at a time when he appears exhausted, disoriented, and desperately fighting to maintain control of his body and mind. Every breath sounds deliberate, every pause heavy, as though he were aware that this recording might be his last form of testimony. No official footage has been made public, but the fragments that have been described convey a sense of isolation so intense that it transcends language. It is not a man acting. It is a man enduring, holding on to the last fragments of dignity and will. Digital analysts who examined the phone found a pattern that mirrors the complexity of the entertainment industry itself. Appointments scheduled at impossible hours, meetings in unregistered buildings, calls that ended mid-sentence. The device paints a portrait of a man surrounded by people yet utterly alone, trapped in obligations that blurred the line between work and control. Those close to him recall that in the weeks before his death, you had grown quieter, more introspective, as if retreating inward while the world continued to demand his perfection. The context of the recording, therefore, is not only forensic, it is emotional. It represents the silence behind success, the hidden cost of fame, and the human toll of being watched by millions yet truly seen by none. This recovered file does not just reopen a case. It reminds the world that truth often survives in the most fragile forms, inside a phone, a whisper, or a man's final act of courage. Fame often glitters like a crown, yet beneath its light there is a silence that few can endure. For Menglong, that silence had begun to grow long before the tragedy unfolded. Those who knew him describe a man who gave everything to his craft, not for attention or wealth, but because he believed art could still hold truth in an industry built on illusion. Behind the perfect smiles and red carpets, he lived with a quiet discipline, the kind that comes from someone who fears disappointing others more than himself. To the public, he seemed untouchable, calm, and endlessly composed. But the data recovered from his phone paints a different picture. A man pushed beyond exhaustion, moving through days that no longer belonged to him, yet still refusing to surrender the last pieces of his humanity. The evidence shows that he was aware of the growing danger around him. Meetings in isolated places, messages left unanswered, calls cut short. Each step in his schedule was like a move in a game he did not choose to play. Yet even in that isolation, he found a way to leave behind fragments of courage. Unfinished notes, brief recordings, messages written between breaths. In one, he wrote simply, "I will not give up." In another, "The truth must stay alive." They are not the words of a man resigned to fate, but of someone who understood that even in fear, there is power in choosing honesty. He seemed to know that he could not control what would happen next, but he could control the legacy of his voice. As the world now revisits those final traces, what stands out is not his suffering, but his defiance. The courage to document, to bear witness, to keep evidence alive when silence would have been safer. It reveals the profound paradox of fame. How a man celebrated by millions could feel so unseen, and yet still manage to leave behind a map leading us back to the truth. Menglong's story is no longer only about tragedy. It is about a rare kind of strength, the quiet, unyielding kind that continues to speak even after the world has stopped listening. When investigators began to examine the phone in detail, the story that emerged was not one of chaos but of calculation. Every file, every hidden folder, every encrypted message revealed a pattern so deliberate that it was impossible to dismiss the thought that Menglong had known exactly what he was doing. What looked like fragments of despair were in fact fragments of evidence, carefully preserved, quietly arranged, and left as breadcrumbs for the truth to follow. Within those scattered digital remains, experts found traces of conversations, location data, and calendar notes that aligned too neatly to be coincidence. Each line of code, each message recovered from deletion, formed a mosaic that spoke of surveillance, manipulation, and control. But more than that, it told of a man who refused to disappear quietly. Among the files were audio recordings that carried an eerie tenderness. They captured a voice that trembled yet remained calm, a man speaking to no one and everyone at once. In one faint message you said, "If anyone finds this, know that I tried." That single sentence transformed what might have been a case file into a testament of willpower. It revealed not only the cruelty he endured but also the clarity of his purpose, to make sure that what was done in the dark would one day be brought into the light. Digital analysts described his actions as those of a person who understood that truth needed a vessel, even if that vessel was his own suffering. He was not merely recording pain, he was documenting proof. The discovery of those files has shifted the narrative completely. What once seemed like senseless tragedy has become a story of resistance, the determination of a man to remain human in a system designed to silence him. The more data experts recovered, the more it became clear that Menglong's final days were not defined by fear, but by a quiet kind of courage that transcended fear itself. His voice, once dismissed as lost, has re-emerged in whispers of code and recovered words, reminding the world that truth does not die with those who carry it. It waits, patient and resolute, for the moment someone is brave enough to listen. What moves the world about Menglong's story isn't only the mystery, it's the humanity within it. He reminds us that even when the world turns cold, there's a strength in gentleness, and there's truth in silence. It's a reminder that kindness and courage don't need an audience to exist. They only need to endure. As investigators continue to piece together what really happened, fans around the world have transformed grief into action. Art tributes in Seoul and Tokyo, candlelight gatherings in Paris and Singapore, entire forums dedicated to promoting mental health awareness among artists. Menglong's name has become more than a headline. It's a symbol of integrity, of someone who dared to keep believing in truth even when it hurt to breathe. Perhaps the most powerful part of this story is that he never truly disappeared. Every note, every trace, every heart that still speaks his name, keeps him alive. Because when the truth is finally uncovered, silence loses its power. If this story moved you, if you believe every voice deserves to be heard, don't let this moment fade. Speech balloons, share your thoughts below, because your voice might be the light someone else needs tonight. And if you want to continue uncovering stories that matter, from the world of art, courage, and truth, movie camera, subscribe to StarWatch now, tap the notification bell, and stay with us as we bring you the stories behind the spotlight. Thank you for watching, and remember, sparkles even in silence, truth still speaks.